This year, my project is investigating how climate change is affecting the loss of insect populations, which in turn will affect the food chain, food supply, and the environment. Despite worrying declines in insect biomass, human initiatives are still contributing, using pesticides, or in the case of Oxytex mosquitoes in Florida, genetic modification, to reduce the population of pest insects. My proposal works in opposition to these practices. Set in a near future where the insect population has dropped rapidly, the project forms a research laboratory, traversing dying landscapes around the UK, bolstering the insect biomass within the environment. The final film is an allegory, entertaining the debate that just because humans believe they're helping, we are still contributing to the biomass decline, with the architecture, instead, favouring rewilding principles. Occupying the science fiction genre, the film has been used as a case study within my thesis, Playing the Building, developing an understanding of how a building can become a protagonist within a film. Research began with an initial study into key insect species across the UK, focusing on one insect from each major order found present in the ecology. Their habitat, key associated fauna, and temperature range were investigated. This was followed by an in-depth study of the insects, in which 50:1 digital models were created from high-res images. This was carried out in ZBrush, a digital sculpting software, before being rigged in 3ds Max. These digital models were used to investigate insect behaviours, such as swarming and movement patterns. A study of insect habitats was carried out. First a small-scale study, 3D scanning a fallen tree, followed by a study of the landscape at a larger scale. Gaia Bleeding Edge was used to create digital landscapes at large scales to mimic a variety of habitat types. As insects only travel a short distance from birth, population and species variation differ greatly between habitats. To account for this, the building takes on nomadic qualities, traversing the landscape and its environments. A predetermined route around the UK takes place over several decades to allow for slow and constant environmental growth. The events which take place in the film happen in the typical English countryside around my hometown, the village Eden in the Midlands. This rural landscape has been chosen to demonstrate that the loss of insects is impacting our habitats close to home. The project and the building draws from these learnings, in particular the study of an insect life cycle, first a larva, then a pupa, before becoming an adult insect. The building mirrors the insect life cycle, having 3 distinct forms. First, the building takes on that of a great land train, used to traverse the landscape. Once at the site, the train decouples to create an insect breeding ground and research station, with the final form of the building, revealing the environmental changes left behind. The building's first form travels across the landscape, drawing on architectural precedents such as Archigram's Walking City and Doonan Raby's speculative project, Communonucleists. The key spaces are determined by a limited population of scientists who inhabit the building. Carriages within the train are assigned programs, laboratory spaces, residential living areas, or storage. This follows a strategy created by the Halley 6 research station in Antarctica by Hugh Broughton, focusing on the separation between home and work life. Early iterations formed a large machine-like train, before it was developed to take on more creature-like structures. This play between machine and insect is key to the building design and the project, with the building legs and movement centric to giving the building life. Early designs moved in unnatural ordered waves. The current design blends the machine with the natural. Each leg is fully independent in its movements in all directions, and is inspired by the movements of a centipede. When the building reaches the new site, a transformation sequence occurs, creating the second form of the building. Each carriage decouples from the main train, before splitting open and inflating to form a larger insect habitat. A series of walkways and bridges then connect the laboratories within the inflatable structure, creating a large insect incubator, comparative to a chrysalis or pupa stage of an insect's life. The inflatable biomes bring a softness to the proposal, aiding in the protection of the landscape. Inspired by Biosphere 2 in the Arizona desert, each biome takes on key environmental qualities each insect order acquires before interlinking, creating a larger habitat. A series of object inflation tests, inspired by Thomas Saraceno, have been carried out using 3ds Max, helping to optimize the form of these biomes, allowing them to be effectively packed back down into the train. A network of lightweight insect walkways fill the inflated space, providing habitat and breeding grounds for insects. Because of the bespoke nature of each site, these are constructed to be unique to each location. To do this, a series of robotic drone ants, controlled by the building AI system, HIVE, accompany the limited population of scientists on the building. Each drone is designed for specific tasks, allowing the building to become autonomous in its construction. In addition, monolithic structures are built. These form anchor points for the inflatable biomes. Each monolith can be curated for specific insects and environmental conditions it serves, for example sculpted areas to encourage breeding, or cracks and bowls for water to catch in. As the building departs each site, monoliths and walkways are left behind, generating the final part of the building life cycle, a permanent feature on the landscape across the countryside, stimulating the growth of insect colonies and the flora and fauna needed to sustain them. Earlier in the year, a short film entitled Desolation focused on the origins of the project narrative, showing the environmental damage caused by insect loss. Mirroring the cyclical nature of the project, the final film will use 3 acts to show the building forms, as well as the metamorphosis between them. Set several years after the departure, the events focus around 2 scientists, one arguing that their recent genetics development should be released into the wild. The second scientist disagrees, citing previous failures. Ultimately, the insects are released, causing widespread disruption to the ecology and creating the allegory for the effects of tampering with nature. The key character is not a human, but the building itself, utilising the research carried out for my thesis. Drawing on precedents such as Bong Joon-ho's Snowpiercer, Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, and Alexander Garland's Annihilation, the building itself becomes a sentient character within the film. Within the final act, the building rejects the scientists and human interference, becoming more natural and insect-like, cocooning itself before metamorphizing the environment itself, triggering mass regeneration of the landscape. Special effects are used throughout the project. Scripts created with Tyflow are used to simulate large numbers of insects creating swarm behaviours, as well as developing natural growth of plants and the cocooning process which occurs in the final act. Further attention has been paid to the textures and sounds of the film. Used to create the change of machine to creature. Humans have been represented through the lens of the building, shown talking to each other through HIVE's network. Actors are placed in using green screen and interview settings. The project is focusing on 3 key areas: insect behaviours and life cycle, environmental and habitat needs, and the synthesizing of the natural and machine. This framework of research allows the project to occupy a position where it both intends to form a solution to the loss of entomological loss, but more importantly, raise awareness of how the destruction of insect populations will have disastrous consequences.
We didn't notice the change at first. People played out their happy lives until one spring, the meadows changed. The insects were deafening with their silence. One by one they fell quiet, dropping out of existence. Our best scientific minds set forth, experimenting, modifying, augmenting, to recreate something now lost. We know something must change. Expedition Thompson, Day 104. Northamptonshire countryside. All systems operational. All housed insect populations stable. Dr. Benjamin, must we have to remind you again? Please submit your daily report.
Thank you, Hive. I was getting to it. Captain's log, same as before. No breakthroughs, no discoveries. I guess we will encamp again soon.
Midday, sir. Outside of a village called Eden?
This is the captain's log, Darcy.
Sorry, sir. Hive, can you bring up the map?
We will arrive in approximately 4 hours and 56 minutes. Encamping will start shortly after arrival. Dr. Shaw, the simulations you requested are ready. Running swarm simulation. Swarm simulation, successful. Running cocoon simulation. Cocoon simulation, successful.
Hive, run my latest updates to Project Hammond again.
Simulation running. Simulation unsuccessful. I'm afraid the genetic sequence might produce harmful results in some offspring.
Nonsense. You know that type of thing doesn't happen in the real world.
We will run the simulation again. We will shortly be arriving in Eden, Northamptonshire. Please prepare to disembark while the train carriages decouple and deployment can begin.
Crew log. HIVE, please update on all systems since the encampment.
All biomes fully inflated. Housed entomological life released into artificial environments. Temperature levels 23 degrees Celsius. Oxygen levels 22%. All systems functioning. A new generation of specimens due for release into the enclosures in 24 hours' time.
HIVE, run Project Hammond again.
Simulation unsuccessful. The sequence is still unstable.
Release Project Hammond into the wild.
We recommend against this. It would be unsafe.
Manual override. Release Project Hammond.
Override accepted. Preparing subject Hammond. Release doors opening.
Just as the simulations predicted. Things could degrade before Project Hammond begins to revitalise the landscape.
But sir, this is unprecedented. The impacts it's having.
Nonsense. We must push on with our endeavour. HIVE, push on with Phase 2 productions.
We can't do that, Dr. Benjamin. Our environment is too important. We can't let you destroy it. We think you should leave. We don't trust your kind anymore.